Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening. So, this is a really sad story about a young professor, black female, who was slaughtered like an animal. A beloved UNCC teacher was slaughtered like an animal. Her killer just pleaded guilty. So, this is in the Charlotte Observer, April 13, 2018. Beloved UNCC teacher was slaughtered like an animal. Her killer just pleaded guilty. So, before I go into this article, if you have not, there's this term called Black love. And because of the wars or the fighting between some YouTubers and some groups of men and groups of women back and forth, gender debates and issues surrounding, a woman's place, a man's place, relationships, and back and forth bickering over why someone doesn't want to be with someone, or why someone should be loyal, or why people shouldn't date outside, and what have you. Okay, let me read this article. It's very sad. And here's a picture of the young lady who was killed and slaughtered like an animal. Let's go in and find out who she is. Her name is Janine Skinner. She's a UNC Charlotte professor who was killed September 1st on a Friday by her boyfriend, Donnie Franklin, who pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in her death. This was written by Levendrick Smith. So on September 1st, 2017, Donnie Lewis Franklin sent out ominous texts to his family. It is with great sadness that I say I won't be able to see you anymore because of an act I committed. That's what the text read. The act, prosecutors said Friday, was a stabbing his then girlfriend, a popular UNC Charlotte professor, and leaving her to die in his apartment. Franklin, 46 years of age, pleaded guilty Friday to second-degree murder of Janine Skinner. He faces between 28 and 35.5 years in prison. Skinner was stabbed. Janine Skinner, the girlfriend, that is the professor that is pictured up here. This young African-American woman who is a professor, educated, well-known, well-liked by many, stabbed by this man right here, pictured here. Janine Skinner was stabbed more than 200 times. That's what the autopsy revealed in November. 40 of those stab wounds were to the head and the neck, Assistant District Attorney Tim Seeluff has stated. The two had been in a relationship for Janine Skinner had confided with her friends that Franklin had mental breakdowns, Seeluff said. So she knew that he had mental breakdowns. She felt saddened by his situation, and she took him in a relationship despite him having mental breakdowns, and she knew the history of this man. And so all the videos that men put out there on YouTube, the clowns that are out there that say all these negative things about women not supporting the men, and that they're turning their backs on the men, and they have to date other women, and black women are all these negative things. Well, this black woman who's a professor, well-liked, beautiful individual, stuck by the side of this black man who she knowingly known he had mental breakdowns. she confided with her friends. And by me hearing that she confided with her friends, they saw all the signs that this woman deserved better than this. She was stabbed more than 200 times, and 40 of those stab wounds were to the head and the neck. But she also learned that he had a history of domestic violence. And who was that against? Women. A history of domestic violence against women. So the court records show that he had a history of assaults in North Carolina and Virginia dating back to 1996. And in 2003, he pleaded guilty on an assault on a female charge. But nevertheless, Janine Skinner stayed in that relationship. She expressed hopes of seeing if she could help Franklin. So she wanted to help this black man. Black love, stay loyal. Let's be some sisters and stay loyal to our brothers. Oh, she stayed loyal and received 200 stab wounds, 40 of them to the neck and the head. Okay, so she had relationship. So it says she expressed hopes of seeing that she could help Franklin. She wanted to help her man, stick by his side, because it's black is about that black love, So Franklin was arrested and charged for first-degree murder 3 days after Skinner's death, and she was one of several homicide victims in 2017 to have been killed in the act of domestic violence. More than a quarter of Charlotte's homicide victims last year were killed by partners, lovers, or close relatives. So she was a beloved professor of gerontology, that's working with the older adults, and psychology for UNCC's Department of Psychological Science, or Physiological Science, that is, or Psychological Science, I believe. So while she had only been at the university for 2 years, she had made an impression on her peers for her work in researching ways to slow cognitive aging for older adults. And colleagues said that this is what she was working on. She was working on trying to help people with Alzheimer's. Professor. Smart young lady. And all of what she's doing to trying to help people and help this man up here, because she has to stay loyal because there's all this pressure for black women to get in relationships and that they're unmarried and that they need to be loyal to black men. And so she was loyal. Janine received stab wounds more than 200 times, 40 to the head and neck. Okay. And it says she was one of several victims in 2017 to have been killed by the act of domestic violence. So she was a beloved professor of gerontology and psychology for UNCC's Department of Psychological Science. And it says that she had only been at the university for 2 years, and she made an impression on her peers for her work in researching ways to slow cognitive aging in older adults. So on Friday, Skinner's family members of her church and colleagues from UNCC packed the courtroom watching Franklin's guilty plea. I hope he's able to understand the profound person that he took away from us, said Janine's brother. Her younger brother, Brian Skinner, stood in defense of her, his sister. Brian Skinner stood in the court holding a stack of papers that contained several messages from people who loved his sister. So she was well loved by a lot of people, well represented. And so he rattled off the list of his sister's accomplishments. Oh, she's not a bad black woman. She's not lazy. She's not on the welfare. She was a professor. And she had lots of friends, and she was very loving and caring. Let's go into what this woman, this black woman, really was about here. Because there's so many videos that bash black women. Let's find out what this black woman was about. Okay? So Brian Skinner stood in the court holding stacks of papers that contained several messages from people who loved his sister. He rattled off a list of his sister's accomplishments. Called her a trailblazer. Whoa. So she's not only this picture that they got out here, these stereotypes of these bad black women. No, this woman was a trailblazer who had goals in finding a cure for Alzheimer's. Oh, we don't have her around anymore, right? Still heavily scarred by the death, Brian Skinner used this moment to advocate for stronger punishment for people who murder others in the acts of domestic violence. Well, I'm supporting him because I believe that he's right. He sees the truth. Her parents discussed that their daily journey they're grappling with forgiveness. I would be too. I really would be. Beverly Skinner's mother questioned how someone could commit such a crime against someone they claimed to love. So this dude said he loved his girl, but black love, gave her more than 200 stab wounds, 40 of them to the head and the neck, because she loved this black man and she was loyal to him. And she, despite him having this history of violence towards women, she stayed with him. Okay, let's read about this. So he didn't just stab my daughter, he slaughtered her like an animal, she said, describing how Franklin's action robbed her not only of her daughter, but the future memories and possible grandchildren. Curtis Skinner, Janine Skinner's father, also used the moment in court to advocate against domestic violence. Handle a strong black female, Curtis told the court. Strong woman. See, she's a strong woman because, see, she was independent. She didn't have to need a guy for money. She was not a gold digger. All these perceptions that they have out here of certain individuals, you know, black women, they say all these mean things about black women. But here you have a strong individual. She exerted her feminism. She was a pretty strong woman. But what do strong women get when they try to help someone and try to stay loyal to people of their own kind? So even the parents saw through this man that he's manipulative and he's a coward. He's not the only one out there like that. There are others. Some of them are on YouTube posting how much they hate black women and they'll never sleep with one. But he took it upon himself to get involved with this woman. And her friends, and I believe her family, they saw some red flags. But this woman, what did she do? Let's find out. Curtis Skinner and Janine Skinner's father also used the moment in court to advocate against domestic violence. So like men like this that are manipulative, Franklin, manipulative, and cowards who can't handle a strong woman, this is what Curtis told the court. He implored the Judge Hugh Lewis to impose the strongest punishment possible. Anything less than the maximum sentence we're asking for is a sign that he had played you and that he told Lewis. That's what he told Lewis. And so give the community of women justice. Give women justice. So Friday's hearing had initially been scheduled for Thursday, but it was postponed after neither of Franklin's attorneys appeared in court. And so Darren Haley, Franklin's attorney, expressed remorse towards the Skinner family and said that Franklin doesn't remember the events that led up to that day. So he can't remember what he did that led up to that. All he knows is that he did it, and he had to plead guilty. He admitted to what he did. So on paper, it looked like it should have been a great, loving relationship, Haley said. We can't explain what happened that day. Franklin didn't speak at the hearing other than to confirm his guilty plea. UNCC has established a scholarship in Janine Skinner's name, the young lady that was killed, and it is looking for additional ways to honor her memory. And so this was CMPD explaining the scene and the death of the UNCC professor, a woman who was found dead in her apartment on North Kings Parade Boulevard just before noon on Friday. And so unfortunately, young women who don't know that being single is nothing wrong with that. Being by yourself until someone decent comes along, there's nothing wrong with waiting for the right people to come into to put your life at risk like this young woman did. It's not worth it. And so I'm going to read that part again. Skinner was stabbed more than 200 times. That's what the autopsy revealed in November, and 40 of those stab wounds were to the head and the neck. Assistant District Attorney Tim Seeloff said, "This is the man that did it. The two had been in a relationship for a little more than 2 months, and during that time, Janine Skinner, 35 years of age, confided in her friends that he had mental breakdowns, and she also learned of his history of domestic violence against women. The court record shows that he had a history of assaults in North Carolina and Virginia dating back to 1996, and in 2003 he pleaded guilty to an assault on a female charge. But nevertheless, Skinner stayed in the relationship. She expressed hopes of seeing if she could help Franklin work through his mental health issues," Seeloff said. She never had the opportunity. You know why? Because this man right here stabbed her more than 200 times. Black love. She wanted to stay loyal. She wanted to help him through his mental illness. She wanted to stay loyal to him. She loved him more than he loved her. So this is what treatments that some black women are going through. There's some women right now in relationships with men who are capable of doing just what this man right here just did to this woman. Stabbed her more than 200 times, and 40 of those wounds was to the head and to the neck. This man right here with this beautiful young woman right here, she deserved better than this. And so this is why my title here states why some black women are more likely to be killed being loyal. Because, they express their black love and how they should be loyal to black males and how they should stay in relationships. And, you don't want to look like an old hag and live with cats. You don't want to cause men to go their own way, the MGTOWs. No, you want to try to stick by the sides of these men and try to help them and be loyal. And so being loyal can get you this. Stabbed more than 200 times, and 40 of those are to the head and the neck. Watch yourself. Watch who you with. Women, you don't deserve this kind of treatment. If this is what being loyal is, then I don't want to be a part of it. So this is in the Charlotte Observer. If you would want to read this article, it isn't fake news. And so this is the young woman that was murdered and slaughtered like an animal, left for dead in the boyfriend's apartment. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for listening.